Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear student. Today the topic of our discussion is ionic bond and under the heading of bonding in solids. So first of all, we need to discuss bonding in solids. Crystalline materials exhibit complete spectrum of bond types ranging from ionic to covalent, van der Waals and metallic as well. Sometimes more than one type of bonding is present, as in salts of complex ions, for example lithium sulfate, which have both ionic bonds between lithium and sulfate ions and covalent bonds linking sulfur and oxygen atoms within sulfate ions. Commonly, the bonds are a blend of different types, as in titanium oxide, which is ionic or metallic, and cadmium iodide, which is ionic, covalent, van der Waals. In discussing structures, it is often convenient to ignore temporarily the complexities of mixed bond types and to treat bonds as though they are purely ionic. So the ionic bonding leads to the structure with high symmetry in which the coordination numbers are as high as possible. In this way, the net electrostatic attractive forces that hold crystals together and hence the lattice energy is maximized, while the covalent bonding by contrast gives highly directional bonds in which atoms prefer a certain coordination environment irrespective to other atoms that are present. The coordination number in covalent structures are usually small and may be less than those in ionic structures which contain similar sized atoms. The bonding in particular compound correlates fairly well with the position of component atoms in the periodic table and especially with their electronegativity. Alkali and alkaline earth metals belong to first A and second A group of the periodic table, usually form ionic structures. Beryllium is sometimes have an exception with respect to the alkali and alkaline earth metals of the periodic table, especially in combination with small electronegative ions such as oxygen and fluorine, etc. So we know that alkali and alkaline earth metals are quite electropositive in nature, while the extreme right side of the elements including fluorine, chlorine and oxygen are quite electronegative in nature. So the combination of both is actually the formation of this particular bond. Covalent structures occur especially with a small atom of high valency in which the cation state would be highly polarizing. For example, boron 3 plus, silicon 4 plus and phosphorus 5 plus and sometimes sulfur 6 plus, and to lesser extent with B, large atoms in the anionic state are highly polarizable, for example iodide and sulfide. Most non-molecular materials have mixed ionic and covalent bonding, as we will discuss later. It is possible to assess the ionicity of a particular bond, that is the percentage of ionic character present in the bond. An additional factor especially in some transition metal compounds, is the occurrence of the metallic bonding. An additional factor, especially in some transition metal compounds, is actually the occurrence of metallic bond. In metallic bonding, the outermost valence electrons are not localized on ions or in covalent bonds between the atoms, but are highly delocalized in energy bands which cover the entire crystal structure of that particular compound. So the most elements of the periodic table are metallic in nature. This even includes all S, D, F and some of the P block elements. So, however, of great interest in solid state chemistry is that many compounds, including oxides, are also metallic in nature. These include tungsten boranes such as sodium tungstate oxide and high Curie temperature ceramic superconductors such as YBA2Cu3O7. These are all metallic in nature. In these variable valence transition compounds, there is a metallic bond. Van der Waals bonding is a actually feature of molecular materials in which the strong covalent bond holds the molecules together and some weak van der Waals bonds are responsible for intermolecular interactions and fact that the molecules such as nitrogen are able to liquefy and solidify at low temperatures. Without a van der Waals bonds, gaseous elements such as helium would not be able to liquefy since there are no other bonds type present. So the van der Waals bonds is actually a quite important type of bonding that would be able to explain the different properties of some gaseous atom and elements. Van der Waals bonds are generally weak bond, which is why the molecular materials have these kind of molecular materials have low melting and boiling points. So let us talk about the hydrogen bonds, such as between the water molecule, are rather stronger since these involve ionic or polar interactions between partially charged hydrogen positive and oxygen negative atoms on the adjacent molecules. Water molecules are in a permanent dipolar state because of the huge electronegativity differences between hydrogen and oxygen. Because we know that hydrogen belong to first A of the periodic table and these are believed to be the more electropositive elements of the periodic table, while on the extreme right side of the periodic table the elements which are present, they are supposed to be the more electronegative elements of the periodic table. Among more electronegative elements, fluorine, oxygen and nitrogen are thought to be the possess strong electronegativity. So the bond difference, the electronegative difference between hydrogen and oxygen is quite high, that will produce a permanently dipolar state because electronegative atom have a capacity to pull the electrons strongly towards itself. So that's why it will create a partial negative charge on the oxygen and subsequently due to the lack of electron on the outer shell of the hydrogen, so it possesses the positive charge. Whereas sometimes van der Waals bonds between non-polar molecules are attributed to weak spontaneous polarity of molecules such as nitrogen caused by instantaneous fluctuations in the charge clouds of valence electrons. So Now we are going to the main topic in bonding in solids, which is the ionic bond. So ionic bond is actually the complete transfer of valence electron between the atoms. It is a type of chemical bond that generates two oppositely charged ions, because it is actually the complete transfer of electron from one atom to another. So that's why there would be a cation and anion. So purely ionic bonding rarely occurs. Even structures that are generally as classic as ionic, for example sodium chloride and calcium oxide, usually have some partial covalent characters. The degree of covalent bonding increases with increasing valence, and ions with a net charge greater than +1 or -1 are unlikely to exist. So there is the possibility of covalent bonding, and that possibility will be increased will be increased on the basis of valence and ions with a net charge greater than +1 or -1. Thus, while sodium chloride may reasonably be represented as sodium plus chlorine negative, TiC, which is also has which is like NaCl structure, certainly does not contain Ti plus 4 and C4 minus ions, and the main bonding type in TiC must be non-ionic. This brings us to a dilemma. Do we continue to use the ionic model in the knowledge that for many structures, for example aluminum oxide, and you can also take the example of cadmium chloride, a large degree of covalent bonding present? Yes. If not, we must find an alternative model for bonding. In this lecture, ionic bonding is given prominence because of its apparent wide applicability and its usefulness as a starting point for describing structures which in reality often have a considerable covalent bonding. So the first thing is ions and ionic radii. It is difficult to imagine discussing crystal structures without having definite information on the sizes of ions in crystal. However, crystal chemistry has undergone a minor revolution because the long established tables of ionic radii of Pauling and others now thought to be seriously in error at the time. Our concepts of ions and ionic structures have undergone a revision. In most recent comprehensive complications of ionic bond, the cations are larger and anions smaller than the previously thought. For example, Pauling radii of sodium positive and fluorine negative are 0.98 and 1.36 angstrom respectively, whereas Shannon and Prewitt gives the value of 1.14 to 1.30 angstrom depending upon the coordination number of sodium positive and 1.19 angstrom for F negative, fluorine negative. These changes have arisen because high quality X-ray crystallography gives fairly accurate maps of the distribution of electron density throughout the crystal system. Thus, one can effectively see ions and tell something about their size, shape, and nature in a quite comprehensive and an accurate way. For example, this figure 1 shows an electron density contour map of lithium fluoride for a section passing through a structure parallel to 1 unit cell phase. The map passes through the centers of lithium positive and fluorine negative ions located on 100 planes, while the this figure actually shows the variation of electron density with distance along the lines that connects the adjacent lithium and fluorine ions. So from figure 1, this one, and figure 2, the similar diagrams for other structures, the following conclusion about the ions in crystal may be drawn. Number 1, ions are essentially spherical. B, ions may be regarded as a composed of two parts: a central core in which the most of electron density is concentrated, and an outer sphere of influence which contains very little electron density. C, assignment of radii to ions is difficult even for the ions which are supposedly in contact. It has not obvious where one ion ends and another begins. Conclusion B is in contrast to the outstated assumption that ions are charged, incompressible, non-polarizable spheres. Now we are going to talk about the conclusion B that is written on this slide. Because the assumption was the ions are charged, incompressible, non-polarizable spheres. Certainly ions are charged, but they cannot be regarded as hard spheres with a clearly defined radius. This electron density does not decrease abruptly to zero at certain distance from nucleus, but instead increasing roughly exponentially with increasing radius. Instead of being incompressible, ions are fairly elastic in nature by virtue of flexibility in outer sphere of influence of an ion, while the inner core remains unchanged. This flexibility is necessary in order to explain the variations of apparent ionic radii with coordination number and environment. Within the limits, ions can expand or contract as the situation demands. So figure 1 and 2 if we talk about figure 1 and 2, most electron density is concentrated close to the nuclei of ions in a crystal. Therefore, most of the total volume is essentially free space and contains relatively little electron density. It is not completely to draw an analogy between the structure of an atom, or you can say ion, and that of our solar system. In both, most of the matter is concentrated in relatively small regions, and rest of the volume is made up of essentially empty space. It is difficult to specify ionic radii exactly because adjacent anions and cations, the electron density passes through a broad, shallow minimum. For example, for lithium fluoride, as shown in this figure, the radii for lithium positive given by Pauling and Goldsmith were marked together with the value corresponding to the minimum electron density along the line connecting the lithium positive and fluorine negative. Although the values of these radii vary from 0.60 to 0.92 angstrom, all lie within the broad electron density minimum. The figure is shown. In spite of difficulties in determining absolute radii, it is necessary to have a set of radii for our references. Fortunately, most set of radii are additive and self-consistent, provided that one does not mix radii from different tabulations. It is possible to use any set of radii to evaluate interionic distance in crystal with reasonable confidence. Sometimes scientists give two sets of radii. One is based on radii, for example 1.04 angstrom of oxygen and similar to Pauling. The other based on radius of fluorine 1.19 angstrom, which was about 1.26, and it is related to the values determined from single crystal X-ray electron density maps. Both sets are comprehensive for cations in different coordination environments, but pertain only to oxides and fluorides. We use here the set based on this system. Radii for some ions M1 positive to M4 positive are shown in this figure as a function of cation coordination number. It should be assumed or stressed that the more highly charged ions are unlikely to exist as such, since their positive charge is reduced by polarization of the anion and consequent partial covalent bonding between anion and cation. As an alternative to use tabulations of ionic radii, typical bond distances for each cation may be used. These were we have already examined in our previous lectures. For example, titanium oxide bond in TiO2 and a wide range of metal titanates almost always lies in the range of 1.94 to 1.96 angstrom when the Ti occupies the regular undistorted TiO6 octahedra. A useful way to compare the sizes of such ions, for example Ti4+, Zn2+, and aluminium3+, is therefore to compare their typical bond length to oxygen. The following trends in ionic radii with position in the periodic table, formal charge and coordination number occur. Number A. For the S and P block elements, radii increase with atomic number for any vertical group, that is octahedrally coordinated alkali metal ions. B. For any isoelectronic series of cations, radii decrease with increased charge, for example sodium, magnesium, aluminium 3+, and Si4+. For any element which can have more than one oxidation state, the cation radius decrease with increasing oxidation state. For example, vanadium 2+ have larger than 3, then 4, and then 5. For an element which can have various coordination numbers, the cationic radius increases with increasing coordination number. The E is the lanthanide contraction ions with the same charge but increasing atomic number show a reduction in size due to ineffective shielding of the nuclear charge by the D and especially F electrons. Radius of a particular transition metal ion is smaller than that of corresponding main group ion for the reasons given. For example, octahedral radii of rubidium is 1.63 angstrom while the silver is 1.29 angstrom and zinc is 0.89 angstrom. Certain pairs of elements positioned diagonally to one another in the periodic table have similar cationic size. For example, lithium is 0.88 angstrom while magnesium is Mg2+ is quite close, 0.86 angstrom. This is due to the combination of effects A and B. So the next is ionic structures. Now we are going to discuss some of the general principles. Consider the following as a guide to the ionic structures. Ions are charged, elastic and polarizable. B is the ionic structures are held together by electrostatic force of attractions and are arranged so that the cations are surrounded by anions and vice versa. In order to maximize the net electrostatic attraction between ions, that would be the latest energy, coordination numbers are as high as possible, provided that the central metal ion maintain contacts with the neighboring ions to oppose charge. Next, nearest neighbor interactions are of the anion cation type and are repulsive in nature. Local electroneutrality prevails. The valence of an anion is equal to the sum of the electrostatic bonds strengths between it and adjacent ions of the opposite charge. So point A was considered in this section. Ions are obviously charged, are elastic because of their size varies with the coordination number, and are polarizable when departures from the purely ionic bonding occur. Thus, the electron density map, which was shown in the figure 1, shows a small, here we can say, shows a small distortion from spherical shape of lithium ion attributable to a small amount of covalent bonding between lithium and fluorine. So the point B to D is imply actually that the forces which hold ionic crystals together are same as would be obtained by regarding the crystal as a three-dimensional array of point charges and considering the net Coulombic energy of the array. From Coulomb's law, the force F between two ions charge Z positive E, Z negative E, separated by a distance r is given by this equation. We can see F is equal to Z plus E, Z minus E is equal to over r square. A similar equation applies to each pair of ions in the crystal, and evaluation of the resulting force between all ions leads to the latest energy of the crystal, and we will discuss this later. Point C actually includes the proviso that nearest neighbors ions should be in contact. Given the nature of electron density distribution in ionic crystals, it is difficult to quantify that what is meant by in contact. It is nevertheless important since although the apparent size of ions varies with the coordination number, most ions, smaller ones especially, appear to have a maximum coordination number. For example, Be2 plus, this is 4, and for lithium Li positive it is 6. So ions are flexible therefore, but within fairly narrow limits. The idea of maximizing the volume of ionic crystal, point D, is rather unexpected since one is accustomed to regarding ionic structures and derivative Cp structures, especially as having minimum volume. There is no conflict, however. The prime bonding force in ionic crystal is nearest neighboring cation anion attractive force, and this force is maximized at a small cation anion separation. It means when ions become too close, additional repulsive force come into play, thereby reducing the net effective force. Superposed on this the effect of next nearest neighboring repulsive forces between like ions with constraints that for example, in A section, cation anions distance are minimized and B coordination numbers are maximized, like ions arranged themselves to be as far apart as possible in order to reduce their mutual repulsion. This leads to regular and highly symmetrical arrays of ions which tend to have a maximized volume. An excellent example of structure whose volume is maximized is rutile TiO2. The oxides layers are buckled and compared with those in ideal hexagonal cubic structure. The coordination of titanium is by oxygen and vice versa. So about the point E is actually the Pauling electrostatic valence rules, the second of the set of rules formulated by Pauling for ionic crystals. Basically, the rule means that the charge on a particular ion, for example an anion, must be balanced by an equal and oppositely charged on the immediately surrounding cations. However, since these cations are also shared with other anions, it is necessary to estimate the amount of positive charge that is effectively associated with each cation anion bond. This is all about this lecture, and we will discuss the more details of ionic bonding in next lectures. Thank you very much.